Hey guys, it is me, Lady C, aka Lady Chris. So I'm here to discuss the show. Let's talk about the things. Let's talk about Black Cake, episode 4, titled Mrs. Bennett. So we start today's episode opening with my kid coming through the door. Sure.
I love you.
Love you too. Alright, so we start today's episode when she's explaining to Gibbs what's going on or what's been going on with her in her life. She explains that she tried to make a life work in Scotland and it just didn't work out because, you know, they kept asking questions and she kept telling lies, and that's it. Gibbs pretty much was explaining to her that he thought she was dead. Excuse me, I feel like I got feathers in my face or something. I don't know. So Gibbs explains that he thought she was dead and gone, honey. You know, just out of here. And he tried to move on, but he really couldn't replace her. She's irreplaceable. She's his one and only. That's what he says to her. And so she repeats his sentiments and tells him that, you know, he's been the one for her from day one. She also asks about what happened, or has he caught up with anybody from back home? Has he heard from Bunny? He went home once to settle some affairs back home, and he mentions that the case that was going on about Little Man was not closed because all the suspects that they had, they haven't checked out, and so there's still an ongoing investigation. We continue with their budding reconnection, and they're so happy to have found each other, and they're wanting to pick things back up, but Mama asks, you know, can we take things slow? I've been through a lot. He agrees. They're back like they never left, holding hands and, you know, all of the things, right? So they're leaving from a date. They're leaving from a date, and Gibbs and Covey run into Edwina, Miss messy Edwina. And so Edwina's got questions. She's like, I thought you was dead, and you're not. And what happened to Eleanor? She's like, girl, I can't do this, because this is the first time that Gibbs is hearing all of this information, and so she's embarrassed. She's, you know, just going through the emotions, you know what I'm saying? And mind you, at the beginning of the episode, I forgot to add, he was like, Covey, when they reconnected, and she was like, girl, don't call me that, okay? Long story long, girl, she runs off into the abyss, and he chases after her, and she's like, listen, my life is just way too complicated since the last time we left each other, because my life is just a mess right now. And he's like, girl, my life is a mess if your life is a mess, because I want to be in your life. I love you and I want to marry you. Let's go ahead and get married, and I promise you it's gonna be different from this day forward. And so they go ahead and get married. They get flued out, go to America, California to be specific, and they start their new lives together. She's like, B&B, honey, the love of my life is your daddy, girl. Now we're further up in the timeline, and they're in the dining room having dinner, and, you know, Mom is just doting about Byron, saying how proud she is of him, and he's become this oceanographer, and I think that's the name of the title, oceanographer. She's so happy for him. He's wanted to do this since he was a child, and all of the things. And the father, we call him Bert now. Bert is like, and my love, my love, Miss Benny, honey, I am so proud of you. You are creative. You're not only talented with the arts, you're talented in the kitchen. You sing. You're just a creative person, and I'm just so proud of you. You're starting culinary school, and you're going to do great things and everything like that. It's just a nice moment. You know, parents start to ask some questions about their dating lives, and Byron, we kind of hear about this girlfriend that Byron's dating, which we later find out her name is Lynn. And Bunny, we come around to Bunny, and I keep saying Bunny, I mean Benny. Girl, all these, oh, Jesus Christ, these days. So we get around to Benny, and she's kind of like awkward, but you could tell like it's somebody, but not really somebody. So So yeah, we talk about Byron's new boo for a brief moment, and then they're playing a game of charades. And so now they're playing charades, and Papa Bert's trying to give her clues, and Covey is just not catching on to whatever clues. And he was like, "Oh my goodness, Covey, like I thought you would have got it by now." And the whole energy just shifted. And the kids is having so much fun laughing, they're not even thinking about what the conversation was actually happening with them. But she changes her energy. She just like, you know what, I don't feel good. I need to, relax and take a rest or whatever. And so he's like, "Baby, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to put you out there like that. I know how this makes you feel. I'm sorry. What can I do? Well, how about we just go ahead and tell the kids our business, because maybe we shouldn't be hanging on to the secret anymore. The kids are grown. It's been a long time. What are we really running from?" She decides that she doesn't want to do that, and then in the recording, in hindsight, she's like, "Well, maybe I should have went on ahead and told the truth, because I may have avoided what occurred on Thanksgiving. We would have been closer to each other." So yeah, she wasn't ready to talk about it or whatever. So now we learn she regrets the decision because it could have brought Covey and Benny closer together, and avoid what actually occurred Thanksgiving, aka Doomsday. Right. Present day, B&B are processing everything that they just learned about their parents, all the things they thought they knew. Benny felt the way. She was like, "Girl, how dare Mom allow Dad to judge me so hard when she was hanging around with Bunny and Bunny was into lesbianics? So what was going on, And so Byron's like, "Well, girl, like, what kept you away from us for so long? 8 years, that's a long time. Like, why did you become so estranged from us?" And she's like, "Girl, I just did not want to be judged. Y'all was so judgy, and I just didn't want to be bothered, okay?" And he was like, "Well, why didn't you go to Dad's funeral?" She was like, "Girl, I just don't feel like talking about it at this point, okay? I need a break. Time out. Flag on the play. Okay, girl? I don't even know if that's the right time, but, So she went on ahead to blow off some steam, met up with this elderly white man, right? And so they're familiar, and they go head back to her apartment, and they get to hunching on each other. And so we know she knows him a little bit, And now we skip on over to Byron's crib, and he's greeting his girlfriend, Miss Lynette, And so Lynette and him, they get to frolicking, and they get to hunching too, okay? So after everybody get their little sessions out, we ain't even on them. We on Byron and them. Byron and Lynette, they finished their little session. They laid up in the bed, all in the sheets and stuff. She was like, "Well, what happened at work?" And he was like, "Girl, I don't want to talk about it." And she was like, "Girl, I already know." And so he was like, "Well, why you ask me that? Okay, I told you I didn't want to talk about it. It wasn't even that important." And she was like, "Well, I mean, why wouldn't you fight for yourself? Why wouldn't you fight for your right to be where you're supposed to be? Like, you worked hard, whatever." And so she started sidestepping into the conversation, and then started bringing up the mom and how she, her feelings about the mom, and not in like a nasty way, but like in a way where it's like, "Girl, you doing too much. That's a family affair, and you just can't get too far in between. And it's really raw right now. Like, the mom just passed on, so it's too much. You was doing too much, girl." So he went on ahead and put her out, and rightfully so, because, girl, you went and got beside yourself at this point. So anyway, so we jump back in the past, and Miss Benny was laid up in the sheets, and I'm thinking she's laid up in the sheets with her man, her elderly white man, but no, she's laid up in the sheets with a woman, okay, with a woman. But so girl, yeah, she was laid up with her lover. Her name is Joni, or Joni. It ain't Johnny. Anyway, her. And so they're talking and frolicking and, smoking and everything. And she's like, "Girl, I want to meet your parents." She's like, "Girl, my parents is kind of like, traditional. I don't know if they really gonna take to me being, all into lesbianics and stuff." And so she was like, well, listen, girl, I ain't going back into the closet. And I can't be with nobody that's all up in the closet. You kind of like in the pantry because you were real artsy, girl. So it's kind of expected of you. She ain't say all that. But you know what I'm saying? So she went on ahead and came out the pantry. And she ended up inviting Joni to Thanksgiving. Doomsday. So this happens and they greet each other and they smooch or whatever at the door, and the family's kind of like awkward because they don't really know how to take it all in. You could tell people being fake, you know what I'm saying? So at the dinner table, everybody's trying to play nice and everything, but then the questions get to coming out. And so the questions is, well, what you doing with your life? And so she was like, well, I kind of dropped out of culinary school. And she was like, girl, what? Not she, but Bert, you know. Girl, what you mean you dropped out of culinary school? And she was like, well, I mean, hear me out. I work at a cafe. And it's for somebody that's really important. And, you know, it's going to work out. Because I'm going to open up my own coffee shop. And the coffee shop is going to have all this fusion stuff going on. We going to jam out and do the things. Da-da-da-da-da. Bert was like, girl, now I done spent all this money on you to go to not one school, but 2 schools. And you failed at both of them. I am not paying for your failures, girl. And so she was like, oh, okay. So that's how you really feel. You feel like I'm a failure. All right, bet. And he was like, well, you can't even commit to it. You can't commit to nothing. Every time you do something, every time we turn around, you gone with the wind, child. You gone with the wind, and it's costing me money. She's like, you know what? I don't got to take this. I'm leaving. And so she heads out the door. And the girlfriend is like, girl, I'm sorry that you had to go through this, but, you know, it'll blow over soon. And she's like, girl, you know what? You. I'm not dealing with you either because you made me come out this closet, a.k.a. pantry, to my family. And I really wasn't ready for that. And now here we are. Okay? So, girl, I'm out. See you later. Goodbye. Anyway, now back to the elderly white man. She goes to this exhibit that she's a part of with her own art pieces. She meets this man, this elderly man, well-connected artist in the industry by the name of Steve. And this is all while she's still on hiatus from the family. She shows up. They introduce themselves to each other. And as their relationship progresses, he's like a breath of fresh air. He's supportive. He's putting her in rooms that she never imagined herself being in. He's doing all of the things that a boyfriend would do, I suppose. But because she's estranged from the family, it just feels 100 times bigger than it probably actually is. You know what I'm saying? And then you can kind of tell that he's starting to show some slight controlling, habits or, stuff. One day they're coming from the date and they run into Joni. So anyway, they come and run into Joni. And so she's like, oh my gosh, how have you been? And she's like, I'm good. And Steve is like watching their interaction, but then at any given moment he gets to take like a little dig or a poke at the situation, just kind of inserting himself where he really don't belong. And it just you could tell he's a third wheel in the situation. Okay, it was an A&B conversation and he was trying to see himself into it. So what ended up happening, so that ends, and then they're back in the apartment, and honey, Steve goes ballistic. Steve gets upset. He's like, I cannot believe you're in bed. Are you ashamed of me? I put you in all these rooms. I do all this stuff for you. How dare you embarrass me the way you embarrass me? And she's like, wait, honey, like, I'm good. Like, we good. I'm not embarrassed of you. It just was awkward because it's been a while. Da 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 da. And so he gets so upset and enraged that he grabs something and throws it towards her head. And she dodged it, thankfully. But the audacity, not even the audacity. How dare you want to harm me? Are you crazy? Yes, he is crazy, girl. So some days go by, girl. He come back, you know, making promises, and apologies over apologies. And of course, she takes him back, right? What else is new? Fast forward, she's in the bed, they're in the bed, and she gets a phone call in the middle of the night. And her father passes on. And so the father passed away, and she's like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm getting up right now. I'm going to go ahead and head out. Steve wakes up and he's like, what happened? She's like, my father passed away. He's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And she's like, yeah, I have so many regrets. I can't believe I let all this time pass on. And now my father's gone, and it's nothing that I can, you know, I can't take it back. And so he had the nerve to say, I don't want you to go back, pretty much. No, you can't go back. Because who going to pick up the pieces? Who's going to clean up the mess? Who's going to pay your bills? I've been doing all of that. I am your family. Not your family. I'm your family. Girl.
Molly, you in danger, girl.
Anyway, so the audacity, right? So, you know, he once again just gets so upset when he feels out of control that he takes it a step further and puts fists on her, right? So now we see her with a whole big swollen side of her face, and she's sitting in the car, and she's contemplating going into the funeral. And she decides, of course, against going into the funeral, because I'm sure she was embarrassed and all the, you know, not only was she probably embarrassed, but she just doesn't want to answer the questions that's probably going to be asked. What the f- happened to your face? Being one of them. We're back to today's current time. So Benny shows up to the family home, and she meets up with Byron, and they're in the backyard, and she just tells him that she doesn't want to hang on to any secrets of her own, because she understood how it destroyed their mother, and maybe the father too, but she doesn't want to live her life that way. And so she expresses how or why she didn't go to the funeral. And so he's like, you know, sis, I would have been there for you. We would have all been there for you. You didn't have to stay away from us. And she's like, you know, I know that now. I'm sorry. And he's like, I'm sorry. B&B make amends. Now that they've finally reconnected as the mother would have wanted, narration mom is saying, you know, I've always dreamed about my family finding themselves back into each other's arms. But forgive yourself, Benny, for whatever, you know, reasons that you didn't show up to the funeral. Sometimes that's just life, you know what I'm saying? But I want to go ahead and get it all off my chest because, girl, y'all got a sister. In a nutshell. And now we're kind of left with our mouths wide open now, because it's like, girl, wait, what? How did this escape all of us? Did you have a baby with, because that's how I felt on the first season. I mean, the first time I watched. It was like, did you have a baby with Bert? And ain't tell nobody, because you did go ahead and give up the goods on the beach that time. So did y'all have a baby and ain't tell nobody? Like, what's happening? You know what I'm saying? But, you know, that's today's episode, and I hope you enjoyed my recap. Hopefully it wasn't too ghetto. I was all over the place. Whatever, you know, girl, I'm getting better, okay? So just bear with me, girl. Love you. Like and subscribe. See you later.